Please help me reach 1000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I read every of them. Thank you.
You know, the worst part of being cheated on isn't the sex. It's the sheer, gut-wrenching realization that you've been living a lie. A beautifully crafted stage play where you were the only idiot who didn't know the script. I thought our 6 years together, the little house, the matching mugs, I thought that was us. That night, sitting on the porch, waiting for the rain, my wife, Clara, finally confessed. But the thing she didn't know, I wasn't surprised. I was just waiting for her to finally admit what I'd known in my bones for 3 long months. This isn't a story about a confession. It's a story about the terrifying silence that falls when your soulmate becomes a stranger. My name is Ethan. Claire and I, we were the meant for each other couple. We had the quiet rhythm of the suburbs. Safe. Maybe too safe, as she later realized. But for me, it was enough. It was everything. For 6 years, I built my world around her. We didn't have fireworks every day, but we had a steady, reliable flame. It felt like a fortress. Then, last winter, she went to a work conference. I remember kissing her goodbye. I remember thinking how lucky I was. That was the last normal moment we had. When she came back, the rhythm was off. It was subtle at first, like a single string snapping in a finely tuned orchestra. She was there, physically, but her spirit was somewhere else. She'd flinch if I touched her unexpectedly. The easy laughter we shared had a forced, brittle edge to it. I found myself watching her, analyzing her silence, her sudden bursts of cleaning, the way she clutched her phone like a lifeline. I used to trust her blindly. Now I was a detective in my own home, piecing together a puzzle I desperately hoped didn't exist. I asked her about it 3 months ago, during dinner. "You're somewhere else lately, Clara. Should I be worried?" Her smile was a mask. The kind of smile a nervous actress gives when she forgets her lines. She blamed it on being tired. I nodded, pretended to be convinced, but the seed of doubt had taken root. And doubt, I learned, is a cancer that consumes your peace from the inside out. I spent every night since then watching her sleep, or not sleep, wondering if the secret burning inside her was the end of us. It was agony. The silence was a physical weight. Last Friday, the air was heavy, waiting for the rain. We were on the porch. She was quiet, locked inside herself. I was scrolling through my phone, pretending to be distracted, but really, I was just waiting for the right moment. I saw her hesitate, saw the "maybe I can live with this lie" look cross her face. That's when I decided to push. I looked up from my phone directly into her eyes and delivered the ultimate test, the cruelest weapon a betrayed heart can wield: trust. You know, no matter what happens, I trust you. I watched her face crumble. I watched those words, my words, shatter her composure. That's when she started shaking. "Ethan," she whispered, "there's something I need to tell you." I set my phone down. Showtime, I thought. I didn't flinch. I just said, "Okay." I listened to the messy, hurried confession. The conference, the bar, the coworker named Marcus, I'd already Googled him. The one-time mistake. Every word was a confirmation of the truth I already owned. But hearing it, spoken out loud, still hit me like a physical blow. The 6 years of us felt like a massive joke. When she finished, the only sound was the downpour. She was crying, a broken torrent of apologies. She kept saying, "It meant nothing. I hated myself." I didn't move. I didn't shout. I didn't even look at her. I just stared past her, watching the rain, trying to put the pieces of my reality back together. I had envisioned this moment 1,000 times in my head. Me yelling, throwing things, demanding details. But in reality, there was nothing but a terrifying, calm emptiness. I finally spoke, and my voice was quiet, steady, and alien to my own ears. "Thank you for telling me." That was all. That wasn't the reaction she wanted. She wanted a fight. wanted me to yell so she could cry louder and think she was being punished. I stood up, walked into the bedroom, and took out my small duffel bag. My hands were steady. She followed me, begging me to speak. "You're not the first person to lie to me," I told her, zipping the bag. "But you're the first I believed wouldn't." I could see the calmness in my voice hurting her more than any rage could. That was the goal. My anger was reserved for myself, for being so blind, so stupidly secure. "I'm going to my sister's place," I said. "I need time. Time to decide if I can ever look at you again." I kept my eyes on her, my own eyes wet but unblinking. "You didn't just break trust," I said, my final punch. "You killed the version of me that believed we were different." And I walked out. The soft click of the door was the sound of a 6-year marriage ending. I drove to my sister, Sarah's house. The 6-year wedding ring felt heavier than a shackle on my finger. People talk about the drive of shame after you've done something wrong. But this was the drive of the betrayed. A quiet, cold victory mixed with complete devastation. I hadn't cried yet. The shock was still a solid wall around my heart. Clara wanted me to rage. She wanted a dramatic scene, a shouting match that would justify her guilt and allow her to play the role of the martyr taking her punishment. But I gave her silence. I gave her control over her confession, and then I took back all control over the ending. That's the real power move. When the betrayal is loud, your response must be an echoing, bone-deep quiet. My sister Sarah didn't ask questions. She just hugged me, looked at my duffel bag, and pointed to the spare room. She knew. She had seen the signs in me, too. The forced laughter, the 1,000-yard stare I'd developed. The funny thing is, that duffel bag I'd zipped up so calmly, I packed it 2 weeks ago. I found out about Marcus a month after the conference. I'm an analyst. I connect dots for a living. The subtle changes in her habits, the sudden password change on her old laptop, the way she rushed to end phone calls, it all painted a picture. I wasn't just sitting there, blindly trusting. I was gathering evidence, preparing for the evacuation. I hadn't confronted her because I needed her to break. I didn't want the truth to be a defense mechanism, a cornered animal's attack. I wanted it to be a burden she couldn't carry anymore. I wanted her to feel the weight of her own actions so profoundly that the confession would be an act of desperation, not nobility. My job on that porch was simply to hold the final match to the fuse. That line, "No matter what happens, I trust you," was the cruelest, most surgical lie I've ever told. I knew it would be the one thing that would crack her fortress of guilt. 2 days later, the silence broke, not with a bang, but with a tiny, pathetic little notification. A text message from Clara. "I'm safe. Don't call. I'll reach out when I can." No anger, no, "How could you leave?" No, "I love you." Just a report on her status. "I'm safe." Like she was checking in with a distant relative, not the man whose life she had just detonated. That was the moment I realized the confession wasn't about me or our marriage. It was about her relief. She had lifted the weight of guilt, and now she was simply floating, waiting for me to manage the consequences. And the total lack of emotion in her text, that's what hurt the most, in a completely new way. It confirmed that the emotional distance I'd been feeling wasn't just a symptom of her secret, it was her new default setting. She was already gone, mentally and emotionally, long before she spoke Marcus's name. I deleted the text, not out of anger, but because it was proof of her complete lack of accountability for the aftermath. Her truth was about her freedom. My next moves would be about mine. I couldn't just vanish forever. I needed to move the narrative forward on my terms. Friends called me a saint for my calm departure. They told her she was brave for confessing. Brave. I laughed. A dry, bitter sound in Sarah's kitchen. Bravery is facing the consequences, not confessing and running away from the resulting pain. I knew I needed to return once. Just once, to collect the rest of my dignity, and I knew the timing had to be perfect. Long enough for her to be tormented by the quiet of the house, but not long enough for her to build a new routine. I would appear as a ghost of the man she loved, someone who had already made peace with her destruction. The house I imagined was doing my work for me. Every unused coffee mug, every photo on the wall, screaming the accusation I'd refused to voice. I decided, 1 week, I would be a stranger, coming to collect his things and deliver the one final crushing sentence she hadn't anticipated. A week. That's how long it took for me to gather the necessary armor. I drove back to the house on a Tuesday afternoon. The air inside hit me first. Stale, heavy, thick with unresolved grief. It was the smell of a beautiful thing dying slowly. I walked into the hallway and the silence was overwhelming. It wasn't the comfortable, safe silence we used to share. It was an empty vacuum, an echo chamber where every memory I had tried to suppress screamed at me. I looked at the wall where all our photos hung. Every single framed moment of joy now felt like a forgery, a meticulous crime scene carefully preserved. They didn't accuse Clara. They accused me for believing they were real. I went straight to the bathroom, and there it was, Clara's toothbrush, sitting right next to mine, untouched. The small, everyday detail that told the entire story of her waiting. She hadn't moved it. She was holding onto the fragile hope that I would come back and pick up my life exactly where I left it, that the lie could be washed away with a single confession. That's the narcissism of the betrayed. They think their pain is the only pain that matters. The thought was cold comfort. She wanted to be haunted by the truth. I wanted to be free from the haunt. I picked up my toothbrush and tossed it into a new travel bag I'd brought. A deliberate, decisive break. She heard the door. She came out of the living room. Clara looked tired, changed. Her eyes were red, not from continuous crying, but from the dull, persistent burn of regret. She had imagined this reunion 1,000 times, just like I had. She probably rehearsed the apologies, the begging for forgiveness. But when she saw me, her words died in her throat. My demeanor was the shock absorber. I wasn't angry. I was simply gone. "Ethan," she whispered. I nodded once, neutrally, and walked past her toward the bedroom. I didn't want to engage in the emotional theatrics she needed. I was a man on a mission. Collect my belongings, my self-respect, and leave the rubble behind. She followed me, trailing me like a shadow. "Please say something. Yell at me. I'm so sorry. I hate myself." I cut her off, my voice even and low, as I folded a sweater. "The time for talking was last week, Clara. I came to collect my things. That's all." It was the most disciplined moment of my life. My mind screamed to unleash the torrent of pain, but my pride held the line. I knew that my silence was a more effective weapon than any shout. I only took what I truly needed: my clothes, my passport, the framed photo of my mother, and my grandfather's watch. I consciously left the things that belonged to us: the matching coffee mugs, the anniversary gifts, the wedding albums. Those were pieces of her history now, artifacts of her failure. They would sit there, silent and constant reminders. I zipped the bag, the sound sharp and final. She was standing at the bedroom door now, tears finally falling. Real tears this time. She asked, "Is there anything left to say?" She was begging for closure, for a chance to fight for me. But I wasn't going to give her that honor. Closure is a gift you give yourself. I walked out of the room, paused at the front door, my hand already on the knob. I looked back at her one last time, making sure she saw the cold resolution in my eyes. The stage was set for my final performance. I stood there, my hand on the doorknob, the full duffel bag slung over my shoulder. The weight of the bag was nothing compared to the silence hanging between us. Clara was still begging, her voice ragged. "Ethan, please, don't do this. I'll change. I'll quit my job. Just say one thing. Tell me you hate me. Tell me you'll never forgive me. Fight for me." She was still fighting for her version of the ending. The explosive, dramatic fight that would allow her to feel like she had paid the price. But I refused to light that fuse for her. I refused to let her pain be a form of payment. My departure wasn't about punishing her, it was about saving myself. I knew that if I stayed, every touch, every quiet evening, every single moment of our future would be poisoned by the ghost of Marcus. I would forever be analyzing her eyes, waiting for the flicker of distance. That wasn't a marriage. That was a life sentence. I took a deep breath. This was it. The final word. I didn't need to yell for her to hear me. The true devastation often comes in a whisper. I looked at her, truly looked at the ruined woman standing in the hallway, and felt a strange, cold pity. You keep asking for a fight, Clara, but there's no fight left. You made sure of that when you chose comfort over commitment. The truth you confessed, you thought it would set you free from guilt, but it didn't. It only set me free from you. She flinched. The distinction was critical. Her truth was a selfish act of self-cleansing. My response was an act of survival. I paused again, letting the gravity of the words sink in. She was still searching my face, desperately looking for the love I used to hold there, the love that had been the foundation of our 6 years. I gave her the truest, most intelligent summary of our entire history, the kind of insight she'd replay for years in the lonely quiet of that house. I loved you enough, I said softly, my voice unwavering. I loved the idea of you enough to never once doubt you, to never check your phone, to build my entire life on the certainty of your character. I let that hang in the air, the true scope of my faith. Then I delivered the final crushing blow, looking directly into her soul. Now, I stated, pulling the duffel bag higher onto my shoulder, my posture changing, I will love myself enough to walk away. The only thing left to say is goodbye. I walked out. I didn't look back. That door didn't slam. It closed softly, quietly, like a final breath. The house was left to its silence, a silence that was now hers alone. Friends would tell her she did the right thing by confessing. They would call her honest, but they wouldn't hear the sound of my keys not jingling in the hallway. They wouldn't see the untouched coffee mugs that still matched. The truth didn't cleanse her, it simply left her alone with what was left. And I had peace, a cold, hard-won peace that I took with me down the sidewalk. I hadn't yelled, I hadn't fought, but I had won. I had chosen my dignity over her drama. As I drove away, my last thought wasn't about Marcus or the details of that night. My final, agonizing thought was about the house and the future I had left for Clara. I had intentionally left those relics behind, the matching mugs, the wedding album, the gifts. They weren't just objects. They were silent, unblinking witnesses to her failure.